Welcome to the podcast that explores mysterious disappearances, bizarre worldly occurrences, strange phenomenon, and basically everything that's weird. Welcome to the podcast, everything that's weird. We are your hosts, Anthony and Brandon. We're here at the Research Mario, and tonight we're talking about the missing DA.
Yeah, that's big mystery. What happened to this guy?
I actually do think this is interesting. I heard the story a while ago, forgot about it, and then it popped up because I'm always looking for stuff on YouTube, and it popped up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one. We should do this. So
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy.
No, when you first hear that he was a district attorney, that's like the first thing you think. You're like, well, yeah, somebody got pissed at you.
Yeah, but the way that this was going on, and we'll get to it later, but it wasn't really that black and white, and that's why that's why it's a crazy mystery.
Yeah. But just on the surface, you get that immediate impression, and then you read into it, and it's not like that at all.
So, just like right away, he gets married. He went to the University of Dayton. Flyers.
Also went to Case Western.
Yeah, I saw that too. So he's an Ohio guy.
Yeah, and Case Western is just for Case Western's had like 17 Nobel laureates have come out of Case Western, including, if you care about this, Albert Mitchelson, who came up with the Michelson-Morley experiment. If you're familiar with that,
of course, who isn't?
Right.
What is the Mitchell
for all the lay people out there?
Yes.
It's
give it to me like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
It's okay. All right. Okay. So he disproved that there was a luminiferous aether. It's real simple. What he did is what a luminescent aether is that it postulates that the medium for the propagation of light would, since light is wave based,
right?
They thought light was wave based, so how could light travel in a vacuum of empty space? Right? Was what you're saying. Like, so there had to be this it's so hard to say.
Okay, can I just say something real quick?
Luminiferous aether that carried
neon?
light. No, like they thought there was like an aether out there that carried light.
Oh, he disproved that.
And he disproved it. So, because we now know that light travels in particles.
Okay. See, I didn't know that.
So, yeah. Pretty cool stuff, simple, rudimentary stuff. Quantum theory, relativity.
He ends up becoming a prosecutor in Cuyahoga County.
Mm-hmm.
And then his wife gets a job at State College.
She got a job at Penn State.
Well, yeah, but it's called State College is the town.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but the drummer in our band, he went to Penn State. And he's like, he would always say State College. And I didn't know that was like actually like the town. So she got a job for Penn State in State College. And he's like, I'll just be a stay-at-home dad. And I guess he was for a little while, but then
a short time, yeah. They had an adopted daughter.
Right. They had an adopted daughter named Laura. She'll come up later.
Mm-hmm.
But while he's in what's called Center County, the district attorney there asked him to be like his assistant. And it was like a kind of a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess at the time,
the district attorney job was a part-time job.
Right. And he ended up that guy left office. He ran for office, and he made it a full-time job.
Yeah,
So,
he got he'd been reelected a few times, and then in like '96, that's when he pushed to have it turned into a full-time job.
So he ends up getting divorced, and then he's called the ladies' man, which I mean, everybody says that, but I don't. I guess there's I don't know. I guess that comes into play a little bit later, but everything I found out, like, he didn't have a ton of girlfriends. He was married, and then
he got married a couple times.
And then he was done being married and he has like a long-term girlfriend. And her name was.
That's great. Her name was like a mob boss's daughter.
Yeah, right.
Patty Fornicola.
Patty Fornicola, right. So they ended up having just like I don't want to say perfect relationship. They ended up having like a perfect arrangement. I don't think she didn't care if they got married, but they had a house together. They were, for all intents and purposes, they were happy. He had started to get, he's ready to retire. And this is his last year in office. And he was set to retire like 8 months later, right?
Well, he announced that he wasn't going to run for office again.
Exactly. Okay, right. And that was like coming up. Up. So he had...
Which he would have been, I think the election was the next year. After he went missing.
So he's kind of like an eclectic guy. He likes to go on long drives in his Mini Cooper. He likes to go antiquing.
Yeah, he's into antique cameras.
Right. Kind of a cool dude. He doesn't smoke cigarettes. He actually hates smoking, and it's a weird thing to throw in right now, but that'll come up in a minute. But he, this one day, April 15th, he says he's gonna play hooky. He's not going into work.
Yeah, he calls Patty his girlfriend.
He's like, I'm going to do a half day today. And she said, cool. Can you take the dogs out at 11:30? And she says, if you can't, call me and I'll come back and take the dogs out. So he says, cool. Calls her and he says, hey, I can't take the dogs out. I'm going antiquing. I'm going to be in Lewisburg. So I guess this is someplace he had gone before, or at least it was on his, like, on his route when he would do this.
The best part is the place he went to was called Street of Stores.
You know,
they just fucking gave up at that point. They're like, fuck it. There's a street. It's got stores on it. Yeah. Nailed it. It's like the guy that named the orange.
Oh, no. It's orange.
It's orange. Nailed it.
Walk off. So, anyway, he doesn't come home. She's actually, like, not wigged out about this because he actually sort of has a history of doing this. And his ex-wife and him got into a fight, and he once left and went to a Cleveland Indians game. He pulls a Ferris Bueller. He goes to the Cleveland Indians game. But that time, same kind of thing. Everybody's like, hey, where's the district attorney? And they actually send people out to look for his car. They find that he is there. So at first, people weren't really, like, weirded out by this. But then he's, like, not answering his cell phone.
Did I say street of shops or shop of streets?
I think you said street of shops.
Did I? Okay.
Yeah,
I started thinking that I said shop of streets.
So then he's like, they can't get a hold of him. They don't know where he's at. And last place they thought he was at this Lewisburg street of shops. And they find his Mini Cooper. They find his
There's a cell phone from this. It was the county issued cell phone.
County issued cell phone. Cigarette ashes on the floor.
The distinct smell of cigarettes too.
Cigarettes, like somebody smoked inside. And what's missing is his regular cell phone, his wallet, his keys, and his state issued laptop.
Yeah.
So at first, one of the first things they think is because his girlfriend had said he had been tired after work and she wanted him to go like see a medical professional because she thought maybe he was depressed or having heart issues or something. And she was like, maybe, they have a history of suicide. Well, his brother did kill himself, but that was like, 12 years prior?
Yeah, but his brother did go missing, and then when they found him in a river. And when they found him in the river, they determined that it was self-inflicted, that he had committed suicide. But that was in 96. That was that same year that we were just talking about with him, where he took on the job full time, and then his brother was found dead.
And then, so apparently at the time, the river was kind of low.
Yeah.
So they looked for him, couldn't find him. And they...
Let's see, what's that, how do you say that river?
Susquehanna.
Susquehanna.
Yeah.
Nice.
So they searched the Susquehanna, which was close to where he was. And they didn't find anything. But then later they go back in July, and they end up finding his laptop, which the hard drive had been taken out. And this particular laptop, it had a screw that actually needed to be unscrewed. So it wasn't like the hard drive fell out.
Right.
Additionally, they did some Google. They went to his house, looked at his home computer. He had some Google searches that said like how to fry a hard drive, how to get rid of data, how to clear a hard drive. Like he had some really crazy things. He also, on his desk, he left the code book open to the steps and procedures on replacing a district attorney. So nothing comes of it. They do like some witness statements, and some people said they distinctly saw him, again, the ladies' man, with a tall, attractive brunette. But they said that they didn't look like they were together like romantically. It looked like they were just kind of hanging out. It's like, and what they meant by that was like they were together for a little bit. Then I guess this was kind of like an antique mall type of thing with like little setups and little shops. And she would go off on her own. He would go off on his own.
Does it sound like it was a bunch of shops on a street?
Kinda. I think they nailed it.
Oh shit!
So right away they have an idea who it is, and they said it's a newscaster, but I never did get who the lady was, and they said they were friends. Anyway.
Yeah, there was a few people. There was a few witnesses around the street of shops that were had said that they'd seen him, and one store owner even said he looked like he was waiting for somebody. And then somebody else said that they had seen him move his car, like just moved it down a few spaces, like he was making room. And
then some other people said that he was like on his phone, kind of rubbing his face.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of like looked into what was going on in his life at the time. His home life seemed to be, pretty stable. He didn't have a ton of money for somebody.
Hardly any.
For somebody in that position,
yeah,
you would think he would have more money. He had about $100,000. None of that was touched. They said probably because he was paying alimony.
Well, he went through like 2 divorces.
Right, it wiped him out. They also said that he hadn't made a ton of withdrawals, like over time, and in total, it was maybe $10,000 over.
Well, they said there was $15,000 that they couldn't account for over like his career.
Okay, which I mean.
Like if he was like,
years.
it's like because there's we'll get to the theories later, but it dealt with one of the theories that the police actually had about him and why they were digging through those financials and stuff.
So he did have a couple. He had like the biggest heroin bust in Center County.
Yep.
He was responsible for. He was also responsible for not prosecuting Jerry Sandusky.
Bum, bum, bum.
But the Jerry Sandusky stuff came out in 2008. It
was like 13 years later after when he said he wasn't going to prosecute. It was 13 years later when all this stuff came out about Jerry Sandusky. And it's not a good look. It's not a good look.
It is not a good look. But then 10 years later, his daughter Laura and girlfriend, they declared him dead to claim his estate. So
yeah. And just to clarify for everybody listening, Jerry Sandusky was a assistant football coach at Pennsylvania State University, and he is accused of he was convicted of inappropriately touching and molesting young boys.
A lot of them.
Yeah. And they're subsequently the college went through all kinds of stuff. You can go and read about that, but there was a lot that went into that, including probably what led to the death of one of the greatest college football coaches of all time.
For sure.
I think it broke his heart.
It definitely did.
Mm-hmm. And then his wife's heart.
Yeah. And that is sad.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was a big Joe Pop fan.
Yep.
I think they kind of got away from it because I think everybody realized it was just him. But the president went to jail. The dean of students went to jail. Mm-hmm. Like, several people went to jail for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they weren't even sure if that played into it either. So let's get into some facts. But right now, District Attorney, in his last hurrah, he's got a few months to go before he's done and retired and not running again. Says he's going antique shopping. Few people see him, and some questionable, like a questionable lady they still haven't identified. His car's there. It's got cigarette ashes in it. He wasn't a smoker. He actually hated smoking. He was a relatively fit guy, was going through a bit of depression. Or it sounded like his brother did commit suicide. They kind of thought he maybe committed suicide. Some people thought maybe he was tracked down by somebody he was investigating, or there's still another theory that he just bailed. But whatever the case, he went missing. His laptop, his hard drive were found, and to this day, nobody knows where he's at. So let's get into some facts. All right, give me 1 second. All right, so theories. So the obvious first theory is that he committed suicide. And next to the street of stores, shops,
Street of shops.
street of shops, there is a bridge. And this is the same fashion that his brother did it.
And that river's pretty decent sized river, but it's also fairly shallow at that part.
Right.
Or at least it was that time of year.
And they said, like, they found bottle caps. So, like...
Yeah. At one point, one of the detectives was being interviewed, and he was talking about when they were flying helicopters over the river. They kept bugging him about what was going on. They're like, hey, listen, if we see something, we'll let you know. We can see the bottom of the river. We can see every stone and pebble. It is very clear right now. So they were going up and down the river with the helicopter. And
so does this river end up in a dam?
It's a big ass river. It's got to feed something. So
Mario, you got that?
Look,
I thought they said that they said that if the current gets your body. Now I will say this, like, I work down by the Ohio River a lot. You have too. And they say, like, they find a couple bodies like a month.
Chesapeake Bay.
I'm Ron Burgundy. Was that a question mark?
No, I'm thinking that's Chesapeake Bay that it feeds.
Does it? Is that a dam? That's how much I know about the dams in the United States.
They're like down into Baltimore, Delaware area.
Okay.
Yep. That's it.
So he didn't have any kind of documented.
That was me stretching my geography muscles there.
I mean, you flexed on me twice. Luminary. What was it?
Luminiferous aether.
Yeah, and now Chesapeake Bay. He didn't have any documented signs of depression, but his brother kind of was the same way. And they say about his demeanor, he was just kind of like this guy that kept to himself. And
yeah, they said it was really weird. They said that he would often like just completely ignore people or walk like past people. He'd be walking down the hallway at work, and he would like not even acknowledge or smile at people. But they said it wasn't like he was being a jerk. It's like if you engaged him at all, he was like super nice and friendly and took time out to like talk to you and stuff. So it was like an analytical thinker, you know what I mean?
And if you ever see his picture, he kind of looks like that.
Yeah,
like he would be that way.
Aloof.
He's very aloof. Yeah, and he's got this look that you don't know if he's fucking with you, or like happy,
right,
or pissed,
or he's just off in some other, train of thought that doesn't involve you at all.
Right, exactly.
He's like staring past you.
But they said his brother was very similar, and his brother said he was going to the store, right?
Well, yeah. Well, his brother had been suffering with depression, so like there was like a history with his brother. His brother, everybody like knew that it, like there was people that knew that he was depressed a lot. He was often moody and sad and stuff like that. So, I think with his brother, they were like when they found him, because he did disappear, and when they finally found him, I don't think that any of them were really surprised at the outcome of what the police told him, which was he did it to himself.
So one of the main problems with the suicide theory is that he saw how bad it messed up his nephews.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, a lot of people thought, including his daughter, that he kind of took on I guess not a father figure role, but like sort of with his nephews,
right?
And that he knew how bad it messed up his kids. So they didn't think it was probable that that's what he did.
Yeah, and they weren't. He was like in the days coming up to it too. He had been talking about how excited he was to be for retirement, and he was only like 60, right?
Yeah.
So he was retiring a little early, and he was really excited about retiring early, and he had like these plans to go on trips and stuff like that. So
he loved to travel. Like that was the thing. That was kind of his gig. And when he bailed and went to Cleveland, that was just kind of his personality. He liked to get in the Mini Cooper and drive, man. I mean, I get it.
The Mini Cooper and all.
Mini Cooper and all, I get it. So they did look for him. They looked extensively. They had divers out there. They were like disappointed. The divers were. They're like, yeah, I mean, if he's not in there. They're like, we would have found him because we were finding like, literally bottle caps and change and
Yeah.
So like, if you can find a quarter, you can find a body. Mm-hmm. So either that did happen, he was carried away, or he didn't jump. And
but he also was. I heard that he wasn't a great swimmer. Yeah, he wasn't a great swimmer. It's not. Was that old Saturday Night Live skit? He's not a strong swimmer.
The male synchronized swimmer.
Still one of the best ever. I don't swim, he said. Fucking great.
That was good. So, okay. There are bridges there. He did have the ability to do that, but there's nothing that says he did. So the other theory is that he was killed.
Yeah, it was murder.
The timeline for Jerry Sandusky, the only thing about that is that some theories are...
Hey, you put 13 on 13, you got a 26-year-old pissed off kid.
Right.
It's sad.
It is sad. It's terrible. But like some people are thinking that it was like either the people were pissed about the Jerry Sandusky thing or there was an upcoming case, but they really didn't have anything on the docket at the time.
No, there was like theories about wasn't there like a Hell's Angel?
Yeah,
he convicted a Hell's Angel, and
he said that they killed him, and that ended up being kind of a waste of time.
Yeah.
Another farmer said he saw him in the car, and he heard 2 shots, and then the cops were like, okay, they go out there. And it was another thing. It was like this whole conspiracy, and they're like, it basically turned out to be a waste of a day. And they were like grilling him, like, what about the Jerry Sandusky thing? This cop, like, you don't think it has anything to do with that? And he's like, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, this is one of the few times I actually feel bad for the cops, Because this story is like, this actually is really tough to like decipher. Yeah. And they're like, everybody's like yelling at him, like, you don't think it has anything to do with that? He's like, I don't know. Like, we don't think so now. Like,
yeah.
The timeline's not right. And, he's like, there was another case that had heroin involved that was just like the same amount.
Yeah, it was a big ring, right? It was a big ring.
And it was out the same amount of time as Jerry Sandusky. So it was like, it could have very easily been something with that.
Yeah.
He's like, but then he's seen with this lady, and it's just, somebody would have had to been following him. There's a lot that had went into if he did get murdered by somebody, it would have to be like blind luck, or somebody would have to be stalking him.
Yeah. There's some of the theorists that say that it was murder were saying that he looked like he was set up, like they like they said that like like how he was one of the store owners said that he was just kind of meandering around the store, and it looked like he was waiting for somebody. And not long after that, another witness said that they saw him go out to his car, get in it, move it a couple spaces over, and then get back out like he was making room for somebody. I don't know how the parking is on the street of stores. If it's just stores and street, there's not a lot of parking, but apparently he moved his car over. Street of shops, whatever the fuck it's called.
What is the official? Is street of shops?
I think it's the street of shops, right?
Yeah.
Mario?
Yeah. The famous street of shops.
The famous street of shops. The well-named.
Not to be confused with the one
with the street of stores. Not to be confused with the street L Street of Stores.
But he was the district attorney.
Yeah, that's a lot of enemies, man.
And they said that he was hard on violent crime. So, when you're hard on violent crime, you're putting people away. That means domestic violence and things like that, where a lot of times, or assaults, and a lot of times you might get probation and stuff. You're like, no, we're not doing that. And people go to jail. So, that could create some enemies. Like people can
there's dudes in prison probably right now that are like, I'm glad that motherfucker's gone.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. And then the heroin ring, I didn't see how big the heroin was, but they never did catch like the kingpin, right? They caught like a bunch of like mid-level.
I can't remember. It was pretty big from what I understand.
Well, it was the biggest in that county.
Yeah.
Time. And I don't know if anybody. I don't know.
Okay, now there was the dog too. They brought a canine out to sniff around the car, and according to the police, the way the dog was indicating was that he got into another vehicle. Because like his scent exited the vehicle and then, like, I guess disappeared. Which is weird. So like, how did people see him or say that they thought they saw him walking around if the dog sniffed? Like, I couldn't discern how that worked out. How do you get eyewitnesses seeing him walking around, but yet the dog sniffed like he got out of his car and got into another car?
So, unpopular opinion, I know people are like, bloodhounds can smell it from here. I just don't believe it, man. I think they mess up all the time.
Oh, shit.
Without incriminating myself, I can tell you firsthand. I've seen dogs make mistakes.
Right.
And here's the thing. Maybe that did happen.
Well,
I mean, that doesn't mean he was murdered.
The only thing I could work out was that the one eyewitness that said that they had seen him go out to his car and move it over a couple spaces and then just repark it. I think that was all their story. So if he did get into his car, move it over a few spaces, and then wait for somebody, then get out of his car and get out, then I could see how the dogs would scent like that. And they'd go, when he moved his car, then he got into a different car.
But again, that doesn't say that he was murdered.
No, it doesn't.
Now, I will say, the cigarettes in the car, they did say he's a ladies' man. So, my man Ray, he's willing to overlook some things.
Right.
When it comes to the ladies.
Maybe he called her ashtray mouth and she got all violent.
So, okay. There isn't, also, nobody's ever come forward. The one guy did come forward, the Hell's Angel, and said that he was murdered and buried and cut up in pieces. But that was never corroborated at all, and he had his facts wrong, and ultimately they just think he was lying.
Yeah.
So, okay.
And then there's the other part about it is that he was also, like you said, he liked to travel. He also could speak semi-fluent Russian,
Okay,
and he was fluent in Slovenian.
I was going there. That was going to be in a minute. Okay. We'll go there now. So we'll take on he left. So, okay.
That was the third theory, right?
Here's the problem of leaving. It's post 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as easy to get out of the country as it used to be.
Right.
You could go to Canada. And
unless you're a district attorney who's first in breaking the law.
So, okay, hold on. I got something for that too. I have something for that. So, you could go to Canada and you can fly out from Canada, but then you might be on, and I don't know if they ever explored that. But as far as the U.S., he never left the country.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was ever proven. If they ever did like a passport search.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yes, you're right. He had family in Slovenia.
Yes, he'd gone to trips there prior. He'd gone there before.
They had actually did like a bolo, like a be on the lookout, and had put up some flyers where they thought he would go in Slovenia.
Yeah.
But nothing ever came of that.
Right.
He did like to go on trips. He didn't want to be married. His daughter was in her 20s.
Yeah, he wasn't even into having stuff in his name anymore. Like,
the house wasn't in his name. He had actually helped her fix it up.
Even that Mini Cooper that you love so much, it wasn't in there. It wasn't in his name. It was in his girlfriend's name.
They're fun to drive. Like,
he's trying to justify Mini Coopers.
Say what you want. They're a blast to drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's kind of weird's not the right word, but he just had a bunch of different interests. Like he was a huge sports fan. He liked the Browns. He liked the Indians. Big Indians fan. And then he liked to go antiquing and
Well, he was seen apparently one of his spottings was in Cleveland in a bar watching a Cleveland Indians game.
Yeah. And
the bartender and an off-duty police officer both said they saw him watching the game.
So part of the disappearance we have to mention is the laptop.
Mm-hmm.
The laptop is, and I'll get to my theory at the end, but the laptop, to me, is the biggest tip-off because he wipes it clean. Now, I don't know why they don't have backups. Like today, if I'm like, I wipe all my stuff clean, everybody's like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Good job.
Hit the delete button, everything. Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a county issued laptop at that. So you'd think a lot of that information that he'd have on there would be either I don't know. It depends on the level of personal information you're allowed to keep on it, you know?
Mario, when does the cloud start?
When does what start? The cloud?
The cloud.
All right.
So this happened in 2005. Oh, this is way before the cloud. When did this?
Yeah.
This is way before the cloud.
Yeah, it's like thumb drives and shit all
Right.
backing stuff up. So he's got it's weird because it is a county issued laptop, so you'd think that the information's
Backed up somewhere. But like I said, Like,
you
what
don't know
if you
how
leave it on the train or a bus?
you don't know how much personal freedom that they're allowed to have, where he could have like his own stuff on there, password protected, that nobody would see.
None. There was that judge that looked at, like, it wasn't even porn, dude. It was like bikinibabes.com or something. And his wife saw it, and God, what judge was this? Oh shit, is this another missing person? Hold on. And then anyway, she ends up telling like the district attorney, and they did an investigation on him, and he got like reprimanded for like improper use of a state-owned computer.
Yeah, but if he had
when you have a state-owned computer, it's
but if we're just talking about like files buried somewhere, like maybe he helped somebody get off a crime or something like that, and he had that. If you took the time to piece it all together, you would figure out what he did, type thing, where it wasn't like something that was obvious and in your face infraction. It would be different. You know what I mean?
Okay, so Mario just said cloud computing actually goes pretty far back. So, and I have to agree with him, because like, what if you left it on a plane, a train, or a taxi, or whatever? Like, what if somebody took it? Like, what if you're walking out and some guy just on a scooter or whatever, or a motorcycle? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
that just can't be the end of it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if the information was something that had to be gleaned by somebody that was in the know, you know, if a thief steals it, if they looked in it, they wouldn't even understand what they were looking in or what they were looking at. You know what I mean? It could be something though that if somebody worked on a case and they were like, "Holy shit, he said he filed this, and here it says it's not filed." Something stupid like that. You know what I mean? Where a standard thief's not gonna look in it and go, "Holy crap, he didn't file his SR 352 form correctly," and clearly that's corruption. I'm taking this to the highest people I can think of. You know what I mean? So he could have had stuff on there that could have incriminated him, but it would have had to been looked at by somebody that knew what they were doing or was part of a case, or, you know what I mean? I'm saying he could still have information on that computer that would be damning to him, somebody else, blah, blah, blah.
So, okay, there was another Pennsylvania politician. His name was Bud Dwyer. He actually killed himself on TV. Have you ever seen this guy?
Mm-mm.
Dude, it's heavy. It's heavy. I don't recommend anybody watch it. If you can't handle it, don't watch it. But he was he was the treasurer of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And he was involved in like a bribery scam. And he had gotten a bunch of years, and he was guilty, and he was supposed to report to jail, and then he got convicted like 50 years, something crazy. And then right before his sentencing, he like called a press conference, passed out a bunch of envelopes, pulled a gun out, and shot himself and killed himself. And here it was because his wife ended up getting his pension. But then I think later he ended up being exonerated. So he didn't really have a wife, and like ultimately she ended up getting his pension anyway. So he also wasn't accused of anything. So like there isn't something like you said. There's not anything that anybody can point to and be like, well, it's because of this.
Right.
But like his laptop being missing or being wiped and the hard drive being cleared. So currently in Center County, there's one, and this is how it is most states or most counties in most states. There's like a main district attorney, and then he has like assistant district attorneys.
Yeah.
That kind of do the legwork. It all goes through him basically.
Yeah.
And so they kind of go out. The cops might bring it. Cops bring a case to you. You look at the case. The assistants are like, yeah, I think this is worth it. And then they run it up to him. And then ultimately, he kind of makes a decision whether to put it to a grand jury and see if you can get an indictment.
Yeah.
So, he did have assistant district attorneys, and there was nothing like in the hopper that said, there was some serious case that was gonna pop off that could be possibly dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, but like I said, there's always that thing that like they don't know. I mean, if you're the district attorney and they're just the assistants, there's stuff that you're doing behind closed doors that they could 100%. Be completely unaware of. Like he might have had something in that computer that said that fucking he had evidence against Jerry Sandusky and he did nothing about it.
So that's a Reddit. That was on Reddit, and a lot of people said he was tipped off that they had gone around him, and that there was like more witnesses and
like there was like a witness testimonies on his computer saved under some anonymous file.
So he had said he didn't think he could get a conviction. It wasn't that he thought he was innocent. He said the amount of stuff that they had. So even that's like explainable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can kind of see that. Mm-hmm. Like, well, do I think he takes shower with kids? Absolutely. I just remember.
So Daniel Tosh was making the joke about it. He's like, "Did you just waffle on that question?" Like, do you like touching little boys? He's like,
Well, Jim Rome, it's like he's a sportsman.
Yeah.
He's like. They asked him a question. Did you shower with the kid? And he's like, yeah. Sometimes underage kids, they don't really know how to shower. And he's like, what are you, soap coach? Teach you how to use soap? You're the soap coach.
Get beyond the ears.
All right. Well, I mean, is there any other facts we need to know about? They did search the river. His car ends up getting taken. Well, his wife's car. She ends up getting it back.
I know they polygraphed his daughter and his girlfriend
to see if they knew where he was.
Yeah,
both. By the way, there's also been tons of sightings, but when they actually investigate them, it's not him.
Well, I think initially that whole computer search too had him kind of looking at Patty like maybe she put that shit in the computer, and so honestly I think the real reason they polygraphed the girlfriend and the daughter was they thought maybe they were involved because they asked them some pretty hard questions, but they both passed. But it's a polygraph, whatever.
His accounts, they haven't been touched, which I always say, if you want to disappear, leave your phone and don't touch your accounts. Mm-hmm. And nobody has any idea what happened to you. Right. That's it. they'll just stop. Just don't go on Facebook. Don't go on Instagram. Leave your phone at home and just leave. So one thing we didn't say is that he went into witness protection, and his nephew said, and I've heard this too. When you're in witness protection, two things. One, you're allowed to contact relatives, but it's under strict circumstances. Like, cops are literally at the house.
Mm-hmm.
They have like an untraceable line. They say, here you go, phone call, and you talk to your loved one. You don't know where they're at.
Right.
Two, you're also not in witness protection forever.
Yeah.
You're in it for a short amount of time, like max 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it's not like on TV. They don't like that relocation thing. Only happens super rarely, from what I understand.
Like what they were saying, like it's not like he would get shipped to Arizona. They would just, instead of Pennsylvania, he'd be upstate New York, like 200 miles away.
Right. They don't put you up in a sweet Miami house.
Right. No. But, to this day, nobody's heard from him. So let's get into some, what we think. All right. Why don't you go first?
I think he killed himself. I think that there's a chance that I think there's a chance that he didn't want to be found because his brother was found. And I don't know. Maybe if there's mystery, then it doesn't hurt as much because you're still questioning. I don't know. But it was really weird that it really looks like he searched how to wipe his hard drive because he had these Google searches that were like, how do you destroy a hard drive? How do you clear a computer? And then his computer is thrown in the river with the hard drive pulled and thrown in the river. And the FBI tried and they couldn't make anything out of it. It was completely destroyed. So
what about the body not popping up?
I don't know if that's that odd of a thing. Like, it's a big river. I know it's shallow. I know what they're saying about it and stuff like that. But even if he was like, it doesn't necessarily mean he went into the river either. Like, he could have walked off into the woods.
Yeah. Somewhere,
you know what I mean? It sounds like, to me, it just sounds like he killed himself because he doesn't have a lot of shit in his name, and it almost seems intentional at this point. Like, I'm not going to have this complicated thing happen after I'm gone where I got shit everywhere, everything's in everybody else's name already. He like you say, where you get funding to just disappear, you can't just disappear because he's got no money. He's not using any money. You know what I mean? And it's not like he's got this skill that's relatable to making money without being a recognizable person. You can't just go be a DA somewhere and nobody will notice that you're the guy that's been missing, So, I don't think he disappeared. It just doesn't seem like he set himself up. And that's what I was talking about earlier with the police going through his financial records. Because one of the things they were trying to discover was, is it possible that he up and left? And so you would notice that as like, was he stockpiling money somewhere that like little bits at a time that nobody noticed? Mm-hmm. So when they went over all his financials, the only unaccounted for money that they could come up with in grand total was like $15,000. And that's just not going to do it. That's not going to cut the mustard, especially if you're trying to fly under the radar and get out of the country. Even it's going to take a lot of money to get out of the country without, you know what I mean? So you're going to need like a passport from somebody. And I think all those could it be possible to him? I don't know what he came across as the DA, you know, who knows how many criminals he's come across that have the skills to help him through this. You know what I mean? If he paid him enough money or whatever. So he could have connections in that sense if you think about it that way. But there's just nothing showing that with his brother having committed suicide. It's not a stretch to say he committed suicide. No matter how he felt about his brother's kids and how they took it and shit. At this point, he could be going, well, they're all adults now. And then as far as like the other theory that him being murdered, it doesn't, I don't know. It just doesn't, if it wasn't for those searches about the computer and the computer being destroyed, I would feel like the murder thing was the plausible answer.
Me too.
Because if it was just the computer, like they found his computer in the river and his hard drive up the river and none of those Google searches existed, I'd be like, he was fucking murdered.
Absolutely.
And they're getting rid of the evidence by throwing the laptop in the water. But since he searched it, it took murder off the table. And I just don't think he was set up to disappear. So, I mean, unless it was like that, you know, like we said for the one, I can't remember which one it was, where it was like, unless he was just set up in that perfect scenario that he got hit with a serial killer or something like that, you know what I mean? But other than that, I think he killed himself. I'm not sure how. Like I said, they seem confident that if he went into the river, they would have found him. But, you know, if you play golf, you're like, I'm confident I'm going to find that ball I just hit. You know what I mean? I saw where it went. It was right there, you know? And then you walk up there and you're like, holy fuck, I cannot find my ball. So I know how people are with their job. They're like, yeah, I can fucking do anything sometimes, you know what I mean? They're like, no, if he was in there, we would know it. Ooh. You know, so you never know if there's just this little bravado on their end or not, where they're saying there's no way we wouldn't have found him. Maybe there is a chance they wouldn't have found him. He jumps in the river and just the right circumstances happen that he floats right on down and out and they never see him again. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And who knows? He lands in a spot that's not heavily populated, because eventually you're like going to get hung. You think you're going to get hung up or caught in a river. A body would, but if like there could be a perfect scenario. He hits the bank of a river that's like there's no people around. It's a lot of brush and heavy woods, and then the animals pick him to pieces. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, they could come 10 years later and be like, we found his bones on the shore 10 miles down, you know? And then everybody be like, oh, wow, we couldn't find him. Oh, and then they'll come up with all the theories on why they couldn't find him, you know? Mm-hmm. That's happened before, you know, where people have been found way later in rivers.
For sure.
So, and I even know one that was like,
it's been a long time, and where he's from, pretty populated.
Yeah, but it's a pretty big river.
It is.
It's actually I believe it's the 16th largest in the country.
So I mean, the Ohio River is giant.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's definitely spots you can get lost on the Ohio River.
If you see the amount of stuff, I used to work on the river. If you saw the amount of stuff that floats down that river.
Yeah,
I mean,
know.
It's insane. Like whole dead pigs and shit. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
So I don't know. And we get stuff that got like, I can speak to you from this. We used to get all this river fodder behind the barge that would like pile up, and every now and then we'd have one of the barge operators. We'd have him like point his engines towards it and like fucking crank them out so that it would blow all the shit out of there. But so much stuff would get caught up underneath that. And like, it was crazy what would come out from underneath that when they would occasionally do that for us. Refrigerators, washing machines, dead animals, deer, pigs, giant fish. And it was like the thing where you'd be working down there the whole time and you didn't see any of them. Right?
In the 90s, I went water skiing in the Ohio River, and I would never do that today.
Yeah.
Like, because when I said, like, they have, like, a couple dead bodies a month.
Yeah.
My wife's friend that she worked with, her husband's a fireman. And he said, yeah, we found, like, 2 guys today, dead. And then they're not even on the news, just in the river. He's like, all the time. He's like, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, all the time. It's like every month.
Yeah.
A couple guys.
Well, there was one of the guys that we when I worked down on the river, there was one of the guys that worked there at his old job that he worked on in another barge company, and he said that they had found a dead body.
Yeah.
And he even talked about trying to pull it out of the water or pull it out from underneath the barge or whatever. It was stuck and his fucking head came off.
No, dude.
Yeah, rough. But it was one of those things, like I can think of a few times there was like a crash on the river where the drunk driver hit a family. Sure. and the dad was missing, and they found him like 2-3 days later, but he was way further down the river than they anticipated. And it wasn't them that found him. It was somebody else that found him and reported it. You know what I mean? But they were like, we were in the complete wrong area.
I was just listening to a podcast today where a girl was camping in Cumberland, and they don't know what happened to her. She went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and gone. But their campsite was right on the edge of this cliff, and the beef is that everybody had, like, there were reasons for them to, like, be mad at her or whatever, and they don't know, like, there were several people that could have, like, pushed her over the edge, but they never found her.
Yeah.
So, that's a lake that doesn't move.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
well, I watch guys. There's guys that are on like YouTube that do videos that they dive and they find missing people. People call them and they've been missing for. There's some of those cases are like.
So there was that teenage couple.
There's 20 and 25-year-old cases.
Yeah, there was that teenage couple that went missing in the 70s or something.
Yeah.
And they went off the road, and they were.
Yep.
And they kind of, everybody said, they took the witness statements or whatever, and they're like, all right, well, if they drove home, the only place they could have went off the road is right here. And I told the story before several times. Yeah. But man, like when I came across that wreck,
yeah.
Like if I wouldn't have stopped. Nobody walks there. I was the only one. Me and my wife were the only ones that we ran, and the only reason we ran that way was because there was a country road we could run down, like free and clear. So we had to run like a quarter of a mile to get to where we could just run next to cows or whatever. And nobody would have seen her for months, if they would have even seen her then.
Yeah. And like I said, some of those diving ones that they do, because that's what they specialize in. They work with the police all the time, so like know how to treat the scene and everything if they do find a vehicle and stuff. But they do these extensive searches where these people were missing for a long time, and it wasn't ineptitude. The police did like thorough fucking searches, And they've even told them before, like, you're not going to find anything because we did this already. But these guys still found them. And like in one case, there had been a storm. They did all their research, and there had been several storms, like after right before these people went missing, and it had caused the rivers to swell and then go back down. And they said all the silt just covered up the car and you couldn't see it. So when the other divers were looking, they completely missed it. But when these guys went down, they went down with like metal detectors and shit.
And that is important to know. Like, a river is its own ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's constantly moving and changing. It's changing directions. It's changing depth all the time. Because, there is like this rolling silt that happens all the time. It covers everything deep. You're right. No,
so there's all kinds of weird, mysterious things that happen where you could disappear in a river if you. I don't think it's concrete that they say we didn't find anything, therefore he wasn't in the river. That doesn't. I think it lowers the probability, but it for sure, but it doesn't cancel it out completely. So there's a chance he killed himself in the river. There's a chance he killed himself elsewhere that they still haven't found that location. That's still entirely plausible. But I think if it wasn't, like I said, if it wasn't for that damn Google search, I would call it suspiciously like murder. But
I mean, just to your point before, Google Earth, this happened. I don't remember when this happened. This happened a couple years ago. It was kind of like when Google Earth started getting really big.
Yeah.
And everybody had it. But there was like a 22-year-old cold case, and the guy was found in a pond because somebody went on Google Earth, and they're like, that looks like a body, dude. And that's what happened. That's how they found his remains. So, I mean, that's probable.
Yeah, and like I said, if it wasn't for that Google search, I would take the evidence of the laptop being destroyed and thrown in the river and his car being there, as murder. He was somebody was getting him. They'd been following him, they've been watching him, they got him out away from his house, but it looks too much like he destroyed his laptop, and I think he did that so that.
And why would somebody else destroy it?
If somebody else was destroying
nothing on it, like there's nothing on it, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna kill him, well, why do you have to destroy his laptop? Like he's not gonna type an email
because
quick.
He probably said, like I was saying, if you're thinking of the scenario of murder where he's like, I got enough on you to put you away for life type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got enough on my fucking hard drive to put you away. Boom, he's a target for murder, and boom, his hard drive's target for destruction. But like what I'm saying is that he would destroy it because, like I was saying before, on the surface, you might look at his computer and be like, there's nothing on here. But if you're doing a thorough investigation because he's killed himself or he's missing or, you know what I mean? Something like that.
I think this is where the Jerry Sandusky thing comes in. Like
where they're going to a deep dive, right? And he might have missed something or let something go.
And then he's going to become like public.
And he doesn't want his family to look bad or anything like that. So he destroys his hard drive. And then that way, if they find him dead.
It seemed like all the people that were on the news, it seemed so obvious that they're like yelling at the lead investigator cop. Yeah. They're like, it has nothing to do with that. And he's like, I mean, maybe it does. I don't know.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah. So I mean, but I think it's like one of those things where it's like, you got a laptop that's like like I said, if you die, go missing, or you're murdered, it's going to open an investigation. There's going to be two people that are going to be extremely aware of that. A murderer or the person with shit on their computer. You know what I mean? They're going to be like, this is going to spark an investigation, a deep dive into all my shit. And if they find this out, it's going to make my family look bad, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to hurt them more than I'm going to hurt them right now by killing myself. So that's what it looks like to me.
She still got her pension, just like
Yep.
the treasurer that killed himself.
And letting Kitty touchers off the hook might affect that pension.
Yeah, probably.
So
Probably suspended without pay, and maybe even.
and maybe there was some stipulation about suicide in there too, and that's why they can't find his body, because he made sure that he wasn't found, so that they'd have to declare him dead. It might have been just like this total brilliant move. Like, I'll just go off myself.
And
they'll declare
Like
me dead. They won't investigate my computer because it'll be smashed, and my daughter will get all my stuff.
And she did.
And she did.
And his girlfriend got her house basically renovated with his money.
Yep.
And that's why they're not really pushing.
And she's got a smoking new fucking red Mini Cooper.
And her and her new boyfriend go out
Fucking top down.
shops. Babe, we're in the street of shops.
Let the turbo kick in.
All right, so you're suicide. I am not. I think he left. I think he left. I think it was perfect for him to leave. He's the district attorney. He has a lot of freedom in a lot of different systems. So what that means is, okay, first of all of us on this podcast, we can't do what he can do. Because we don't look like him. He looks like 30 different people I've seen in my life. He just does. He looks like you could know him and forget him in 2 seconds. He's a great candidate for the CIA. He is somebody that, like, with a beard and some long hair, is a completely different person. He's a guy that if he had like a tight beard and some glasses and he dyed his hair and wore a turtleneck, and
he's a beatnik,
and like a jacket with patches on the elbow, he'd be a different guy. Like, he's somebody that can blend into, because the base of Ray Gricar is white. He's just a white guy. Like, everybody that sees him, he's just one of those guys. He's a good looking dude, but he's also very forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
Like as we're doing this, I forget what he looks like. Yeah? And all I've been doing for the last week is researching him and watching videos where he's on the video. But as we're doing this, I couldn't. If somebody came in and said, "Draw what he looks like," I got, like, you know what I mean? He's
got gray hair, right? He's got gray hair,
right? There's this like, it's like a TikTok, and this girl's like, "You basic as fuck," to this guy. And he's like, "What are you talking about? You have no detail in your face, bitch. You easy to draw." And that's, honestly, he is hard to draw because
I can't remember him.
I can't remember. He's just a guy. And, I feel like nobody ever knew him. Like, all the stories.
Yeah.
Like, okay, his daughter, she's in her 20s when he disappears. So he doesn't need to stay around for his daughter. She's fine, right? He doesn't have a wife. He has a girlfriend. And that's a lot different than a wife. A girlfriend, like Jerry Seinfeld said, "Oh, you think as you have a long-term girlfriend, it's the same as having the wife. He's like, that's wiffle ball, my friend. It's true. Like, it's totally true. A wife is much different than a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a girlfriend doesn't expect certain things from you, whereas a wife does. So, like, you know, he was probably exceeding expectations from his girlfriend. He fixed up her house.
Yeah.
She inherited this house. They were basically living there for free. He took, like, money he was making for his salary, fixed up the house. You know, they did all these renovations, not right before he left, but the whole time they were living there, there was like this, it was a constant, this old house project.
Right.
So he had all these travel plans. He had all these things to do. Either he was tipped off that the Jerry Sandusky thing was coming out, and that would make him look bad, or none of that even mattered. He was just like bored. He is a guy that when he has a fight with his wife, leaves and goes to Cleveland from Penn State College to watch an Indians game and doesn't tell anybody. That's what he does. And I could see him just being bored. Like, he's just bored. They said he's like a ladies' man. People, it's because you haven't found that person, in my opinion. This is my opinion. When you're like a lady, you just haven't found the right person. Because when you find the right person, you're like, oh, everything, you know, like you just stop. You just stop doing all that. But like, when you're constantly doing that, you're constantly like with the ladies, you're flirting, like that means you have a lack of excitement in your life. He has the ability to leave the country. So at the time, okay,
Oh, sorry. I agree with you. I better do that to make sure.
Okay. So at the time,
I agree with you. Once you got a wife, you stop thinking about women completely.
yeah,
Let's make that clear.
She listens.
Let's clear that up.
So in 2005, I can just tell you, I was working in Beverly Hills. I was bartending, and this actress came in with her friends, and I talked to her quite a bit. And she's like, you know where you should go? Cuba. And I'm like, dude, you can't go to Cuba. And she's like, yeah, you can. She's like, here's what you do. You go to Cabo. And she's like, you can go over the border in Mexico, catch a flight to Cabo. Go to Cabo. They won't stamp your passport when you go into Cuba. Cuba wants you there. They'll actually protect you, set you up with bodyguards because they want you to spend money. She said, go there, party. It's a great time. Come back. So here's the thing with that. With no passport, you can go to Mexico, get to Cuba, fly from Cuba to Slovenia, and they have dual citizenship.
Yeah.
So if you, sometimes you have to renounce the country you came from, but with the United States, they don't make you do that. But if Slovenia was a thing, he also looks like every Slovenian. Like, yeah, he's just a guy. You know what I mean? Not to mention he's been cited so many times. And the people that have like taken pictures, they have, you know, looked at it and said, well, it's not him. But I mean, I don't know, man. Do you have I don't know what you have to do to be a district attorney. If you have to take your fingerprints, DNA, I don't think you do. You don't have to do all that.
It was a part-time job before he made it a full-time job.
So, like, he's never been arrested. So, do they have his fingerprints? Do they have? So, like, how do you know if he changed his identity?
I don't know.
Right. I kind of think he bailed, man. I think he bailed. I think he said, well, you know, either this Jerry Sandusky thing is going to come out, or life just sucks. Like, this isn't what I wanted out of my life. And, you know, and this is going to sound harsh, but like, his daughter was in her 20s. Like, you know, she's already got like her own life. What's he hanging around for? Like, what for $100,000? What's he going to do with $100,000? Because that's what he had. He had $100,000. He didn't have a ton of money. And even one step further, maybe he made a deal, made some money, and that was his ticket. And maybe the hard drive was the final thing. Maybe he had that file. And they just, you know, he was able to bury a case. I've looked at cases that were coming up that I couldn't find anything. And they said there wasn't anything big. But I looked if there was anything that was like going on, and I didn't see anything. But maybe he pulled a favor. It's all, whenever they say that people committed suicide and you don't see them, you don't find them, the hardest part for me is like, you have to really go to a place where nobody's going to find you. Because especially in Pennsylvania, there's people around. I get it. If you're like in Washington or the Canadian Rockies or something, you could go somewhere, nobody will ever find you. But like, and I know there's bears probably, or yeah, I don't know, mountain lions. I don't really know that area of the country. But I kind of think he bailed. I kind of think that's his MO. And either he made one final deal to get some money, or he had something worth money that he could trade in and get money, or he changed everything, and he's in a position where he could have done that. So I kind of think it makes a lot of sense that he just walked away from his life. And honestly, if you're in like some South American countries or Eastern Europe, dude, if you have $50,000, you are okay. We were in Ecuador. I could have bought a hotel for $80,000. Yeah, we thought about it. We for real thought about it. The only reason we didn't, it was because I don't speak fluent Spanish, and I was afraid I would get dicked out of the deal, and then I'm like, you know, stuck in Ecuador. But like, we talked about it. We're like, we'll buy a hotel in Ecuador, you know. And it wasn't like the Bates Motel either. It was a decent hotel with like 30 rooms, a pool, a tennis court. Like, it was legit on the side of a mountain overlooking the ocean. So like, in certain parts of the world, you can do that.
Yeah.
I think he failed.
I don't know, man. Occam's razor. I think it's way too complicated for him to bail. Like, there's too many moving parts.
Yeah, but like, a lot of moving parts for.
Because, like, I mean, what I'm saying is that
Why would he leave his?
if he wants to do what you're saying he wants to do, he could just do it. He was retired. Like you said, his daughter was an adult, and his girlfriend, he could just break up and walk away from it.
Maybe he pulled off a crime that nobody knows about.
That's. I got a feeling there's something. There had to be something on the computer.
Right, because okay, why do you leave it open to how to elect a new district attorney? Why do you leave the code book open to that? Why do you have the Google searches? Why do you actually destroy your computer?
It was said that he was fascinated with a police officer that faked his own death.
Right. And there was a guy, I just listened to another podcast called My Fugitive Dad, which is awesome, by the way. It's about a guy in Cleveland, where he's from, that took $200,000 from a bank. He was the bank manager. He took $200,000 and he just walked out of the bank. He walked out with it. People waved to him. He said, "I'll see you Monday." And nobody ever saw him again. And he ended up getting cancer. He was like 75 years old, got cancer. He's terminal. He's dying. And, he said to his wife and his daughter in a new family, I got to tell you something. I'm on the run. I've been on the America's Most Wanted list for the last 50 years. And they're like, shut up. And he's like, oh yeah, I stole $200,000 in 1968 or whatever. And they're like, get the fuck out of here. But he did. That's exactly what he did. And he died. And all these people were like his friends, and they're like, dude, we never saw that coming. And he hid out in plain sight. He changed his name. He looks a lot like this guy. He's just a white guy. You know what I mean? He's just a guy. He's like, if I was like, hey, draw a guy, and you drew a guy, it looks like him, right? So he looks like a bunch of different people. He changes his name. He has an English surname. I mean, dude, it's just like, he looks like every Tom Miller, Tom Smith, Tom Jones that you just see out.
Every Slav.
So he was super smart. He was like Harvard wanted him, and then he ended up selling cars, and his buddy's like, dude, why do you sell cars? I don't get it. And he's like, I like it. Yeah, make a little bit of coin, this and that. And he's like, I know, but you should be like a doctor, like a banker or something like. And he's like, yeah, And I mean, some people, in that guy's case, he had already committed a crime, so he was hiding, and nobody found him. And in this guy's case, I don't know if he committed a crime, but I don't believe he was murdered, because it's just none of it would make sense if he was murdered. Why did he wipe his hard drive? Why did he leave the book open?
Why did he search it? The murderer would have had to go to his house and search. It would have to be somebody he knew.
Leaving the book open to how to get a new district attorney. Yeah. So it's either what you said. It's either suicide or he bailed.
Yeah, the murder one's not. It doesn't seem as plausible as those other two.
And our explanations really don't even make sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, man.
So we're undecided, right?
Right, it's undecided. I mean, I'm leaning towards suicide, but you could be right.
And I'm leaning towards mine, but you could very easily be when you see the river, Mario sent us the picture of the river.
Yeah.
And then where it ends up, yeah. I mean, he could very easily have just been in a channel. They say the Ohio River has those channels that catfish live that are how big.
Oh yeah, big ones.
Cars. Right?
Yep.
So why not? Why could he not end up there and just
Yep.
So,
no, eat anything.
Right. So I think we're undecided, right?
Right.
All right. Well, I'm Anthony.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Mario.
Haha, you are. And this is Everything That's Weird.
For show notes and merchandise, go to www.everythingthat'sweird.com. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to like, subscribe, and review anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to contribute, please go to our Patreon page at Everything That's Weird. Check us out on Instagram at Everything That's Weird or Twitter at ETWPod, Or if you'd like to send us an old-fashioned email, go to everythingthat'sweird@gmail.com.